around 9 a.m. on December 28, 2017, 19-year-old Natalie Bollinger messaged her close friend Tim Beeson to confirm their plans for a motorcycle ride later that day. It was midwinter in Broomfield, Colorado, a town that sits midway between Denver and Boulder, not far from the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. But the weather that day was mild, and Natalie was keen to get out. It had been a tough year for the teenager. She'd recently enrolled in a college to study nursing, a lifelong goal, and was keen to start her studies. But a consistent sense of dread was making it hard to enjoy even the smallest things. Sometimes she even genuinely feared for her life. At 9:06 a.m., Tim wrote, "Just let me know when you want to go. I'll come pick you up." "Okay," Natalie replied. At 9:58 a.m., Natalie messaged him again. She said she needed to take care of a few things first, and then she'd be in touch. 4 hours passed with no word from Natalie. Tim assumed that she had gotten caught up in something else. "Guess I'll just wait for you to hit me up when you've got time," he wrote. Tim sent one more message to Natalie's phone that day. It was 5:22 p.m. This time, though, it wasn't to Natalie, but to Joey Moreno, Natalie's live-in boyfriend. Chillingly, the message read, "Has she been found?" Natalie's boyfriend Joey had called Tim earlier in the day, around 3 p.m., asking if Natalie was with him. Tim said that she wasn't. Joey was clearly concerned. He said that Natalie had left the house around lunchtime, but hadn't taken her phone with her. She had, however, taken his Glock 9mm gun. Nobody had seen or heard from her since. At 3:30 p.m., Joey notified the local police. For most of us, several hours of not being able to reach someone is no real cause for alarm. But in Natalie's case, it was, and it was all down to this man.
God doesn't need a fucking house to fucking quit. God doesn't fucking need it. Donald Trump doesn't fucking need it. Bill fucking Gates doesn't fucking need it. No matter how hard I work, I get treated like I'm the one who did all this horrible shit to all you fucking people.
You see, Natalie had a stalker. 42-year-old Sean Schwartz was a homeless man she had known since she was 13 years old. Just 5 days earlier, Sean had been issued with a restraining order, but he'd already violated it with threats of hunting down and killing both Tim Beeson and her father. 2 weeks prior, Natalie had also posted an announcement on her Facebook page, one of her last ever posts. "Hey y'all, I have a public announcement. There is a man, Sean Schwartz. I met this man when I was young. I ran into him about 2 years ago. Long story short, I became friends with him. I helped him out with rides and stuff. I moved to Virginia. He drove across the country to see me, slept behind my work for weeks. When I told him I didn't want to see him anymore, he sent me hundreds of texts and calls. He parked his car in front of my house, blocking Military Highway for hours, laying on his horn. He was arrested. Since then, I've asked him to leave me alone, and he won't. He sent emails for over a year, close to every day, harassing me, making numerous accounts until I block him again, threatening my family, telling me he'd kill himself in front of me, and sending my friends and family harassing messages as well. I'm sharing this because he's posting slander about me all over Facebook. So if you receive a message, I am sincerely sorry. Please ignore him. It only encourages him when he gets a response, much like a child. He's mentally ill, and I'm trying to fix this." Below the post, you can see a screenshot from a Facebook profile of someone with the name Michelle Brannock. It is timestamped December 11th, 4:29 p.m. The image is of a balding man with a gaunt face and a scraggly salt and pepper beard that reaches halfway down his chest. He looks like a character out of a Brother Grimm's tale. Behind him is a yellowing wall and a workbench, clustered with tools and random bric-a-brac. The man in the image is, of course, Sean Schwartz, and the profile, just one of dozens of fake profiles created in an attempt to connect with Natalie. The Facebook Live video he'd made in response to Natalie's announcement was one of hundreds he'd uploaded over the past year or so, many ranting about Natalie. In them, Sean swings between praising sulkiness and self-pity and self-righteous rage. It's enough to raise the hair on the back of anyone's neck. Bizarrely, Sean was one of the first people to share the news on Facebook that Natalie was missing. He brazenly asked people to help in finding her. He seemed to have forgotten that to Natalie and everyone who knew her, he was a terrifying stalker capable of anything. In one video, he sheepishly offered to lend Natalie money if she needed somewhere safe to go. Ironically, safety for Natalie meant being anywhere that Sean was not.
This probably would be good one, but just in case. I get like $705 a month for Moss Burger, and my January money I didn't pay on my bill. I still got like $300 left on my account. It would help you to get somewhere safe. I got money I can just send you to stay.
Within hours, Natalie's entire online community had turned their focus onto Sean Schwartz. They urged police to investigate him and bombarded him with questions and accusations. A Facebook group was created with Sean cast as the leading suspect. With his history of stalking, the recent restraining order, and his strange and disheveled appearance, he couldn't have fit the image of a stalker turned killer better. And then there was this, a message sent by Natalie to Tim Beeson, which Tim now circulated for the world to read. "If I ever go missing, he did it," Natalie wrote of Sean. "If I end up dead, tell the cops it was him." And then, tragedy. On December 29th, the Adams County Sheriff's Office announced that the body of a young woman had been found by a passerby in a wooded area near a dairy farm, not far from Natalie's home. The body would later be confirmed as Natalie. She had died from a single gunshot wound to the head. Casings from a Glock 9mm were found at the scene. She also had a potentially fatal dose of heroin in her system. Police would not officially confirm the identity of the body until January 2nd of 2018. But somebody else would have publicly announced it long before then. Police were quick to name Sean as a person of interest. Within hours, he found himself at the center of a media firestorm and the target of rampant online threats and accusations.
Also, I've been instructed not to speak to y'all, but I got a few more things for you.
Well, do you know what happened to her?
No. You know who does?
Tell me.
How would I know? What happened to Natalie? What do you guys know? All I know is from Facebook Messenger, and I hate Facebook.
What did Facebook Messenger say?
It doesn't matter. You need to get a hold of the police and talk to them.
He reacted to it with enraged denials and counterattacks, and his favorite, long, convoluted rants on Facebook. "I didn't kill anyone," he wrote in one post, adding that Natalie was nice to him. On January 2nd, he posted, "If Natalie were an ugly hobo, you wouldn't give two shits about her. To you, she would be a junkie who wanted, needed, or deserved it, or it didn't happen. But to me, she was a hero. Not because she was pretty, because she was nice to me when everyone abandoned me." Natalie, he kept saying, had been his friend, and, as it would turn out, she had been. Sean had met both Natalie and her twin sister, Alicia. Yes, as it happened, Natalie had a twin when they were both 13 years old. Natalie had once considered him a friend, a good friend even. Odd? Well, yeah. Sean had met the twins in downtown Boulder in an area known as a hangout spot for the homeless and, in his words, druggies. The twins would smoke weed or sell drugs for their father. As proof, he posted an email online allegedly sent to him from Natalie, dated July 30th, 2016, in which she talked about her turbulent and dysfunctional childhood. In the email, she wrote that her dad was violent and that her mom had left when she was just 3. She and her sister bounced back and forth between 2 homes for years. Her dad did drugs and often had the twins sell them for him. They were later removed from his home and placed in foster care. There is no proof that the email is actually from Natalie, but the timeline lines up roughly with Natalie's father's jail stints and explains how Natalie ended up friends with a much older homeless man. In Sean's version of events, he and Natalie had become reacquainted when she was 18. She had become a great friend who would help him out and give him lifts. They messaged each other regularly and supported each other through their mental health issues. Schwartz suffered panic attacks. Natalie, severe depression and substance abuse issues. According to Schwartz, it was Natalie's suicidal impulses that were the cause of the whole stalking misunderstanding. She told him she planned to kill herself, which is why he'd been so persistent in trying to reconnect with her. He was attempting to stop her from taking her own life. Maybe he overstepped some boundaries, but that was because his Asperger's syndrome made him less tactful than most. But Sean was skipping over some key aspects of the story, or maybe he lacked the insight to see them. Because while Natalie's friends confirmed that Natalie had suffered mental health issues, her version of the story differed quite a lot from his. Natalie had been fond of Sean, her friends said, and sympathized with his mental health challenges and lack of a support network. But Sean had become obsessed with her. When she tried to create distance between them, he'd turned desperate and had taken drastic measures to win her back. When those had failed, he became vindictive, abusive, and frightening. He berated her on social media, attacked and threatened her family and friends. He bombarded her with messages and emails. When he wasn't sending unwanted messages, he ranted about her on Facebook. Each time she blocked him, he created new profiles and used them to post vile slander about her. Then he drove across the country from Colorado to Virginia and camped behind her work for weeks. One time, when she refused to see him, he blocked the street outside of her mother's house with his hand on the horn until he was arrested. On September 10, 2017, he'd written to her, "Natalie, I wanted only the best for you. Now all I want is for you to go through the hell I have lived. I want to blow my head off in front of you, so close you can feel the raw splatter of my blood on your face. I want you to feel every bit of my pain, because you gave it to me and didn't care. You should not have pretended to care. Tom Beeson is a piece of shit. I chose not to be a piece of shit. I am not worth shit to you." Tim Beeson and Natalie had dated years ago and had been solid friends ever since. Messages sent between Natalie and Tim during 2017 show just how fearful Natalie had become of Sean. On December 13th, 2017, Natalie wrote, "Sean walked to 120th. He said 100 plus blocks. That's literally 3 minutes from my house. I'm so scared." Tim responded, "Sorry, had fallen asleep. My phone is next to me now. And my gun. Natalie, mine is too, and there's one in the chamber. I don't feel safe." On December 15th, she wrote, "If I ever go missing, he did it. If I end up dead, tell the cops it was him. I'm not even joking." On December 16th, "I honestly feel that Sean would tie me up in a basement and no one would ever hear from me again." On December 22nd, Natalie was granted a restraining order against Sean, who was now facing up to 8 years in prison if he violated the order due to the extreme nature of his behavior. But the messages and videos still came. On December 23rd, he made a video entitled, "I'm not asking you to love me anymore. I'm asking you for help getting the pills I need to kill myself." And then, a twist that nobody saw coming. On January 8th, Sean Schwartz was officially cleared by police as a person of interest. He had been in a different state at the time of her disappearance. People were shocked and reluctant to forgive. Sean may not have been a murderer, but there were his mental health issues that had been left to go on unchecked, and Natalie had picked up the tab. But if not Sean, then who? The online community would soon find themselves a new target. On the day her body had been found, Natalie's father, Ted Bollinger, had taken to Facebook to announce the news. "My daughter was found murdered," he wrote. "Just got back from the sheriff's office." The message was met by an outpouring of grief and sympathy. The next day, Ted posted another message. A GoFundMe account had been set up, and everyone was invited to donate to help pay for Natalie's funeral. This post was met with a lukewarm response. Some people found it jarring that the subject of money was being raised so soon after the news of Natalie's murder. Shouldn't Ted have been too busy grieving to think about that stuff? Over the next few days, 6 more GoFundMe accounts were created. The goals of each account, meanwhile, seemed to be increasing. The first account they had opened with a goal of $5,000. Then it was soon increased to $10,000, then $20,000. On his fundraising page, one person openly attacked Ted. Terrible that a GoFundMe was set up so fast. Her body isn't even cold yet, and already a damn GFL. Ted himself kept unwittingly adding fuel to the fire, plugging his fundraiser in every media interview. And when the news broke that Natalie's funeral, paid for by the community, had been canceled because Ted and his estranged wife couldn't agree on the details, there was an uproar. Speculation became darker and nastier. Had the Bollingers ever really intended to have a funeral? Had Ted kept all the fundraising money for himself? Was there a monetary incentive behind the murder, or a drug-related crime gone wrong? Internet sleuths took to digging up every aspect of Ted's past, and it was a seriously checkered one. Ted had a long list of criminal convictions to his name and several stints in jail. Among his convictions were charges of child abuse, assault, and drug dealing, an official suspect. The spotlight went off Natalie's father with no apologies. Ted may be no saint, but during the depths of his grief over his daughter, he'd been accused of murder and endured a full character assassination. Natalie's funeral, as it turned out, would be a beautiful service held on January 13th, 2018.
My Natalie, her father is still consumed by anger, rage, and sadness.
I feel like I died too. My baby was a mess. I would trade completeness, anything. She didn't deserve this.
While the internet sleuths had been busy flinging baseless accusations, police had been investigating Natalie's phone records in the days prior to her disappearance. One particular phone number stood out. In the days leading up to and including December 28th, Natalie had exchanged 111 messages with that one number. That number belonged to a 22-year-old man named Joseph Michael Lopez. Lopez lived in Thornton, Colorado, and was the father of a 7-month-old baby and the manager of a Domino's. On the day after Natalie's body was found, a colleague said he'd been vomiting at work and taken the rest of the week off. Nobody in Natalie's life had ever heard of Lopez, and it appeared to be the first time the two had interacted. Lopez's cell phone data showed he'd been in the area at the time of Natalie's disappearance. Now things were about to get truly bizarre. Faced with the damning phone evidence, Lopez began to talk. He told police that he'd met Natalie via a Craigslist ad she posted in the Men Seeking Women category. The ad had been titled, "I Want to Get a Hit on Myself." Out of curiosity, Lopez messaged back. He told Natalie he had experience as a hitman and could help. Natalie, by way of explanation, told him she was deeply unhappy with her boyfriend and wanted to end her life, but didn't have the nerve to do it herself. On December 28th, Lopez had met her at her apartment, where they discussed payment and how she wanted to die, on her knees and shot from behind. She had her own firearm. Lopez says he tried to talk her out of it, but she was adamant. scouting locations. When they'd been unable to decide on one, he'd driven her home, and that was that. There was only one problem with this story. Lopez's cell phone data placed him in the exact location where Natalie's body had been found. Lopez now offered a second account. They had found a spot, he said, a place near a dairy farm. But it was Natalie who had shot herself. Police now explained to Lopez that the trajectory of the bullet into Natalie's skull meant that she could never have pulled the trigger herself. For the third and final time, Lopez changed his story. He tried to convince Natalie out of it, he said, but when he realized he couldn't, he caved and agreed to help her. The pair had prayed together, he said, before he closed his eyes and shot Natalie in the back of the head. The account was sickening. The whole Craigslist story is bizarre and dubious, but all the evidence placed Lopez at the scene of the crime. The gun he'd used to kill Natalie was still in his truck, along with her purse, and the police had a confession. On February 8th, 2018, Lopez was arrested for the murder of Natalie Bollinger. He was later charged with first-degree murder and sentenced to 48 years in prison. He escaped a life sentence by pleading guilty, a deal that devastated the Bollinger family.
48 years in prison. That's the sentence handed down just moments ago for a man who says he was hired to kill a teenager in Adams County.
Police say Joseph Lopez shot and killed 19-year-old Natalie Bollinger after seeing her ad on Craigslist. Her family wanted life in prison, and they are not happy about today's plea.
But the circumstances, unfortunately, just didn't meet the death penalty. Like you heard Ted Bollinger, Natalie's father, ask for on Denver 7 on Saturday when he spoke with our Thomas Hoppo. Now, today in the courtroom, a very, very emotional sentencing. We heard from both Natalie's grandmothers. We heard from her mother. Her sister did not speak, but she stood there with her mother. And we also heard from Natalie's father. All of them said that Natalie was a light, that they're just not going to be able to find a replacement for her. They said that Natalie loved pets, that she had the dreams of being either a veterinarian or a trauma nurse, and that she was somebody that's irreplaceable.
During the sentencing, Ted Bollinger said, "You took advantage of my daughter. She was vulnerable and drugged. You premeditated, brutally shot and killed my baby. I asked for an eye for an eye. You have been protected. The Bollinger family had no say in this. This is a deal with the devil." Now to join the internet sleuths for some conjecture and unwanted speculation. Data miners have never been able to retrieve Natalie's alleged Craigslist ad. In fact, there is zero evidence that a Craigslist ad ever existed, which means that Natalie and Lopez could have met any number of ways, none having anything to do with Craigslist. Many people believe that Lopez simply invented the Craigslist story to get a lighter sentence, and indeed it was used in his defense as an argument for mitigating circumstances. But just say his story was true. There was an ad in Craigslist. Who's to say that it was Natalie who posted it? And even if she had planned to die that day, would she have chosen a violent death at the hands of a stranger? What of her autopsy results and the near-fatal dose of heroin? The argument against any theory based on speculation is that it is, of course, just speculation with no basis of evidence. Natalie's phone must have revealed the exact nature of her interaction with Lopez. As for Lopez and his bizarre motive for murder, he confessed to investigators that he'd kept a journal in high school where he wrote kidnapping stories about torturing people and ending their lives. Natalie had just spent a year trying to escape the unwanted attentions of a seriously ill man, only to die at the hands of a far sicker one. Meanwhile, Sean Schwartz still posts long, rambling videos about all of the injustices in the world on his Facebook account. He denies ever stalking Natalie. Meanwhile, his Facebook page overflows with her images.